This is the fourth and final video of the seventh section, Love, the International Language. In the last video, we learned how to use migrations to organize database changes. Now, we're going to learn how to translate our application into different languages. We'll configure our app to look for alternate translations when they exist. Then, we'll use the application's T method to tell Yi which blocks of text to translate. Next, we'll use the message command line tool to generate our translation files. Finally, we'll create a language-specific view, because sometimes it's just easier to simply translate an entire page rather than individual blocks of text. The first step is to open up config web.php and configure the source language for the application. We'll use the default value, which is en-us. The en stands for the language, which is English, while the US stands for the region, which is the United States. This might come in handy, for instance, if you wanted to tailor your content for users in the United States and the United Kingdom. Next, we'll change the language of our application. In this case, we'll simply set this to DE, which stands for German. Next, let's open up our monster model and add some translation code to our attribute labels so our German-speaking monsters know how to sign up and search. Simply wrap each array value in a call to the T method of the application object. The first parameter is the translation category. You can use this parameter to keep your translation files organized. We'll call this monster. The second parameter is the message to be translated. While we're at it, let's create values for our beginning age and end age labels, as well as for our image file, which was created when we learned how to upload a profile picture. Now that we have some content to translate, let's generate the message files. The first thing we have to do is create a messages directory in our application root. Next, we'll run the message command's config action in order to generate a configuration file for our message file generator. We'll tell it to create the file in our new messages directory. The message file generator will scan every file in your source path directory, which in this case is the application root, as well as all of its subdirectories, and try to find calls to the T method. It will then create files in your messages directory that you can use to translate your text content. Head back to the terminal and run the message command again, passing the config file location as an argument. In a minute or two, you will have message files ready for translation. Open messages, de monster.php, and you'll see that all of our monster attributes are just waiting to be translated. Fill in the German translations, and then save your file. The last step is to head back to the main config file and tell Yi where to find the translations in the monster category. Add an I18N configuration, and configure its translations attribute. We'll create a configuration for all categories here. We'll tell Yi to use the PHP message source class, which simply means that our translations are stored in PHP files rather than in the database. Next, we'll set the base path of our message files. Then, we'll set the source language, and finally, we'll create a file map which links the message category to its corresponding message file. Save your changes, and then pull up the monster list page in your browser. You'll see that the search fields are now translated into German. You'll notice, however, that the profile information in our list view is still in English. That's because we didn't use the T method to output this text. We'll leave that up to you to fix. So now you know how to translate individual blocks of text. But what if you want to translate an entire page? It's actually remarkably simple. Using the setup we already have, let's translate the home page. Open up the Views Site directory and create a DE folder. Now, copy index.php into that folder and open it. Replace all of your English content with German content and save the file. Much like the themes, a translated app controller will look for a translated file first and then fall back to the original view file if none exists. Congratulations! You've created your first application using Yi 2. You created a development environment and installed the basic application template. You learned how to scaffold and test your code. You learned how to create users and log them in, as well as restrict their actions. Then, you learned how to change the appearance of your application. This led to the development of a search UI, which allowed your users to search for each other. Finally, you learned how to add some advanced features to your application. But you'll surely see that there's a lot more that you could do to make this application look and feel more like a real-world dating site. The next step is to take a look at the Yi2 Definitive Guide, which will help you dig even deeper into this incredibly flexible and powerful development framework. The Definitive Guide is located at www.yiframework.com/doc-2.0/guide-readme.html. Once you master that, you may also benefit from looking directly at the framework source, which is located at github.com/yisoft/yi2. And who knows, maybe when the monsters take over the world, they'll treat you just a little bit more compassionately because you helped them find love.